Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Search for Clarity. We've got a great lineup and session today. We have got Danny Atias, who is the CIO of London Business School. And today we're going to be focusing on leading with impact, where he's going to be talking about CIO challenges and driving executive impact for any leader in any position, really. So as mentioned before, and as we always do, it's a two-part episode with Danny, and we are going to just remind you again that the thoughts and opinions expressed on this podcast are solely those of the individual contributors, and that it is my own independent effort, and it is in no way associated or endorsed with any of my employers or clients. So, a brief introduction to Danny. As I mentioned, he's a Chief Information Officer at London Business School. He oversees the digital transformation strategy and technology strategies to support academic excellence. He previously served as a CIO at Anthony Nolan, the UK stem cell and bone marrow donor organization, where he led significant IT and digital advancements. He's been recognized in the UK's CIO 100 list for his innovative approach to technology in non-profit and educational sectors. He's got a strong focus on utilizing technology to drive organizational impact, streamline operations, and enhance user experience. And from a sustainability and leadership perspective, is known for championing sustainable IT practices, fostering inclusive leadership within his teams. So it's great to get to interview him. I actually, Danny was a client of mine a little while ago, so I got to see him actually walk the walk in a lot of these things, and so was very excited that he decided to join us to share his wisdom and knowledge about how he, does leadership. And the great work that he does. So, Danny, it's so great to have you on the Search for Clarity. Welcome.
Thank you, Richard.
So, Danny, I wanted to just jump straight in and, you taking us perhaps through the journey that you've gone through, your personal leadership journey, namely what pivotal moments shaped the leader that you are today.
Okay. I think one of the key things when I started having managers, when I started working, I would watch managers at play or teachers at school even, and I would go, why do they do that? Why? And I built up a little bank in my mind of, well, when I'm a manager, I won't treat people like that. I will give more time, all of those things. And so then as you start to become a manager, you start to put practice, you're kind of going, autonomy, independence, trust, all of those wonderful things. And that served me really well. I did then over time start to understand, I got to answer that question, why do they do that? And I realized that's because they're catering for the lowest common denominator. So because one person fiddles their expenses, you have to have horrific expense management processes for all staff just to avoid any one
person ruined it all for everyone.
Correct. Yeah. And it's just, okay, so do you cater for the lowest common denominator, or do you treat everyone equally and the way you would want to be treated? And then by exception, deal with the lowest common denominator, right? So rather than that inequality of misery, everyone has to suffer together because of one person. So I think that's probably really, really, really early days thinking about kind of my management style. And then that's kind of persisted. And then I suppose I'm reasonably good at when I do stuff. So when I give a public talk or when I'm, go through my day job or whatever it is I'm doing, I'm reasonably capable of detaching from myself and almost sitting outside and observing what's happening while it's happening, and kind of having almost like sitting on your shoulder going, why are you doing that? Why are you saying that? And really assessing what are the reactions, what's happening, what's the outcome. And I've been doing this for a few years now, 20, 25 years. And I'm constantly having to change up my style. In fact, over the last year and a half, I've had to dramatically change up my style because the things that used to work in the past haven't worked in a different environment, for example. So
sure,
I think it's through a kind of process of learning and through iteration. But I also then think about individuals or circumstances on my journey where someone has said something or done something, normally positive, although negative works as well, because you can kind of learn a lot from that. And you recognize the impact that recognition has had on you. So I had one, super great manager. I was in one of my jobs. So most of my jobs have lasted 7 to 9 years. So I haven't done that many. I've done a few. And one of them lasted 3 months. And in that 3 months, I had 3 managers. And each one of those managers was a contractor. And it was already doomed to fail, right? And the middle one of those 3 contractors, literally my manager for 4 weeks, but had probably the most pivotal impact of him looking at the organization, looking at the organizational culture, looking at my behaviors, my strengths, my weaknesses, and just saying to me in my one-to-one, yeah, why are you here? You shouldn't be here. In a very supportive and positive way. Your style is not going to match this organization. This organization has got a lot of work that needs to be done. You're more than this. You're more than the box that they've put you in. And there are almost like 2 conversations. That was one of them. And then the other one is this guy was pretty well established. I mean, he was relatively young at the time, maybe 5, 6, 7 years older than me. I was a infrastructure project manager. He had been a head of IT. He was a chartered engineer. He had an MBA. He was working for consultancy. You just kind of like, wow, how do you do that? And he'd been the head of IT for an organization that I held in high regard in the south of England. And he had a department of 40 people. And I remember saying to him, like, wow, how on earth can you manage a department of 40 people, right? This is a long time ago and really early in my journey. And he just said, well, I don't. I manage 5 people. I just manage 5 people and those people manage their own teams. So yeah, the idea, and I just realized, oh, okay, so maybe it's not as hard as I thought. And it helped give me just a little bit more perspective. So anyway, lots of little things that different people that have given you a boost and gone, I think you can do that, or I'd like you to do more, you've demonstrated your capability. And the reason I say that is A, it's helped me go up, but B, I pull that back and I go, how can I use those same interactions with people that I see with potential and enable and support and enforce those behaviors with them? Actually someone going, that's really incredible.
No, thanks for that. One thing that I've picked up on through every single sort of industry expert that we've had on the show, when the topic of leadership comes up and we just quickly define what does that mean to that individual, it's always about an ability to have self-reflection and to really know thyself. I think that's, our previous session, that was one very big highlight of the discussion that was had, but it's been a common theme throughout all of the experts that we've had. So I'm curious from your side, either consciously or not, Danny, how much of you really knowing yourself do you think has influenced your ability to show up in that way where people see the potential and actually start to help you get elevated and to move into these positions?
So look, it boils down to Carol Dweck's work on growth mindset more than anything else. If there is a single thing that matters more than anything else is an awareness of self, an awareness of growth potential, and an awareness of where are you getting in your own way. When I've worked with coaches or when I've coached, almost the first thing is we're going to help you get out of your own way. Right? What are the things that you're doing? Like, forget everyone else. Everything's going to be difficult. Circumstances are going to repeat themselves. And when you've been doing it long enough, you see the same patterns of behavior happen again and again. But how do you get out of your own way? How do you learn from that? And how do you try little micro changes that can make enormous differences? So I think realistically, the hardest people to work with are the ones with a very fixed mindset. And I think it is really hard to change that mindset. And people's mindsets are the way they are, the way they've been brought up, right? Their childhood experiences and, have they been put down all their life or have they been pumped up all their life? Where mediocrity gets over celebrated, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for myself, I have exaggerated character traits, so you can almost say like a caricature. And but I'm unaware of most of those. I won't be aware of all of them, of course, but that's why you have close friends and confidants that can help you go, hey, let me just pull you over here and have a conversation. And I will tend to, a bit like a character, exaggerate some of those traits sometimes for effect or for impact.
Mm-hmm.
Won't necessarily always, do the things that will get you liked, but really challenge people thinking. So I think that's a big part of it. And then the other thing is I'm continuously reflecting on whether that was a good job or not. But I celebrate my achievements, right? If I've done something well, if I go and give a public talk or whatever it might be, and I think that went well, and all the feedback says that went well, I go, that was awesome. I did brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. I'm really happy with that. Don't have to be so much humility all the time going, oh, well, it was okay. No, it was brilliant. It was really, and I've had some that were really bad, and I'll admit those as well. But equally, I'll go, how can I make it better? What did I take out of that I could repeat? What can I take out of that I can learn from? So whether it goes well or whether it goes badly, what specific behaviors? So you're trying to do your thing, look at what happens, what are the after effects, and then tweaking it, constantly tweaking it, saying how is what I'm doing what is the ripple effect of what I'm doing, and how can I bring it back? So I've got a new boss, for example. He's a very busy man. He won't be listening to this, unfortunately. I hope. Not to talk about it. But I thought, right, new boss, new start. You don't get any history, you don't get any prejudices, and so on. And I just kind of went, rather than what do I want from him, what would he want from me?
Mm-hmm.
It's a good way to find out. Do you know how to do that? How do you find out what he wants from you? Any thoughts?
Put me on the spot. I would say, and I'm just taking a stab out there, but you ask him.
Yes, that's it. Oh Excellent. My God, yeah.
I've got my gold stars here. Hold on, I want to
it sounds stupid, right? It sounds stupid, but how often do we do that? How often do we go in and go, let me take you through my plan. Let me take you through my problems. Let me take you through what I've delivered. Look how brilliant I am. This is what I need from. How often do we go, what's important to you? And how can I help you achieve that? Full. Okay. And it's more than just playing a game. It has totally transformed my narrative in my own head of what I do, of what my responsibilities are, of what I need to achieve. And we're talking like 9-10 weeks here. This is not a huge period of time. And then when you get it right, then you get to a point where you get more openness, you get more transparency. I'm talking about leading, managing upwards in this case. That's pretty amazing because you're like, oh, positive cue. And then you get to a point where there's so much trust and there's so much transparency, he's going to tell you what he thinks. Like, and that might be bad. And that might be about you. And you can either go, whoa, hold on, I don't feel safe here. Or you can go, okay, he feels confident enough to share that. What can I learn? Let's just park how I emotionally react to that. I'm not happy conversation, and just go, what could I have done that would look different? What does he want? Okay, well, let's have another go. Do another iteration. Go, does that get me back on track? Oh, that's got more confident. And then you get back on the horse again. So right, yeah, by all means, leverage your strengths. But if you're not getting uncomfortable, and this is the bottom line, right? If you're not getting uncomfortable, you're not growing. And that's okay if you don't want to grow, right? Not everyone wants to be the CIO. I had a kind of fabulous moment with my own direct reports 2 years ago. I went round one by one individually. Do you want to be a CIO? And the first one's like, hell no. I'm like, okay. And I was like, the next one, and they're like, nah, I thought about it, but it's not really me. Okay. And they had another one, is like, no way. This is brilliant. And then I got to one of them, he's like, yeah, totally. I'm like, brilliant. Let's get you on that path. Because the sooner I have a successor, the sooner I can relax And the sooner I can kind of grow into my next level of priorities, opportunities, and you can really grow into these ones. So I think that's really important, is really understanding what people want, what drives them, but that constant reflection. So don't assume anything about anyone. That's definitely a mistake that I've fallen into in the past. Really just asking and then listening and then reflecting, and then getting into those uncomfortable spaces. That's the important part, is just you're not growing if you're not uncomfortable. And I think the people that have got this kind of fixed mindset, they're so comfortable in their strengths. And often those strengths are fantastic, like fantastic. But where are they getting in their own way? And they won't allow themselves to see where they're getting in their own way. And unless they can open up their mindset, then they've peaked, because they're at the top of their, they're at the top step. They don't realize how many steps there are to be achieved. And you never want to get to the top step. I mean, you can't get to the top step. Who on this planet, apart from David Attenborough maybe, is on the top step? There's no one. So you just kind of go, okay, how can I do it better?
Yeah, I think there's two things in that I find interesting. The first one, of course, is I think it's taken for granted, because I think we're always showing up within a downward view of, like, getting the stuff managed and make sure that's all running well. That when we start to go and approach the top part, we show up with the, look what we're doing, everything's fine, everything's great, as opposed to just say, let me manage above me, manage those relationships and make sure that I'm very, very clear on what's being looked for and, what that does it actually mean, and making sure there's transparency and clarity and good relationship between all the individuals at the top. I'm finding a lot of sort of mid sort of leaders finding a great battle and trying to make that shift between a downward focus to that upward, just listening, calibrating. And key point that you made there is that very strong reflective practice around what's working, what's not working, removing the emotion from it, and looking at how to do things more effective if you're really listening under the emotion and under all the other stuff that's going on. Those are the things I find most interesting about this.
I think also, when you're relatively junior, you go in and you go, I know nothing, right? And you go, I got to learn stuff. I got to get better at stuff. I want to make it to project manager or developer or whatever, marketing director. And you get better at what you do, and you get better at what you do. But then there comes a point, and that point might be at 2 years. It might be at 5 years. It might be at 10 years, where you go, I'm awesome at what I should be recognized with a promotion. I should be recognized with more of a pay rise. I'm not sufficiently valued. Whereas actually what's happening is you're plateauing. You've stopped that growth. You don't go, I'm going to make a great project manager. Now I'm a project manager. I could make a great portfolio manager. I could make a great governance risk, head of. I could make a great whatever. And you kind of wait to be recognized, and you feel hard done by because you're putting in really hard work. So I think it's really hard. It is really hard, because I could certainly, I know every challenge I take, every new role, it's got to be, half of it's got to be doable and half of it's got to be scary. And if it's, well, I mean, quite frankly, if I was only taking gigs that were doable, I should contract. Because then I go in, I contract to do the work I can already do. That organization's got no interest in my growth or my development. And I'm delivering X pounds of value every day, day in, day out. Brilliant. I'm contracted. But as an employee, I want to be learning and I want to be growing and I want to be getting better. But that's on me. I'm not waiting for my manager to write my objectives. I'm not waiting for my manager to schedule my one-to-ones. You've got to take ownership of it. It's at the end of the day, you're a blip in your manager's life in real terms, but you're with yourself forever. So you're got to be the one who's looking out for yourself and putting in, and that means investing in yourself. That doesn't mean, choosing what you accept. It means learning and growing. And learning is another part, right? You can't think you've made it ever. Especially now in this insanely changing world of technology and everything else that technology influences, if you are not, I'm going to give you one like a relevant example, but you can't do a podcast without saying the letters AI. But you read these surveys and go, yeah, technology leaders that aren't using AIs aren't real technology leaders. You should be using AI every single day. And I'm sitting there going, I'm not using AI. I'm not using AI. And then I bring up ChatGPT and I'm like, what do I ask it? What do I ask it? Yeah, like literally you're kind of going, everyone's telling you should be using AI. And I'm sitting there going, I don't know what to use it for. And I ask it questions, yeah. And then once you really start to try and integrate it with your workflow, which actually I've only been doing for about a month now, with a couple of particular tools, it's like, boom, whoa, hold on. That I just created something that we've been struggling to do for weeks as a team. And I just asked it a question with all the information and it gave me exactly what I wanted. That was powerful. Or I asked someone for something and they didn't have time to deliver it. So I asked the AI to do the work for me and it generated. And so literally in the last 4 weeks, and this is, late 2024 now, suddenly I've realized the value of it and I'm using it several times a day and it is blowing my mind. And what I'll do is, so I don't go, great, I'm now secretly more efficient. That's my superpower. I'm going to write a blog about it. I'm going to go, here are the examples where I've used it so that people like me from a month before will go, oh, I hadn't thought about using it in that way. Or I hadn't realized I could do that. I think that's the other opportunity. So that's a continuous learning, right? You've got to find something that excites you.
Expose yourself to stuff.
Yeah. And expose yourself. Yeah.
I was always interested, Danny, CIOs today have to balance it. I think it's not today. It's always been the case, having to balance innovation with operational realities.
Yeah.
I was just, in light of all these things, what do you see as the biggest leadership challenge for CIOs in this dual role with, these new technologies that are cropping up that are really progressive, very aggressive? How do you get that balance right?
It depends what kind of organization you operate within. So if you are in a wonderfully dynamic and agile environment with really great data, really great architecture, everything you do is innovation and optimization and continuous improvement. If you're in an environment which carries a lot of technical debt, doesn't really conform with standards, and even organizational design isn't optimized, and it's really hard. It's really because you'll have a business that are going, hey, I want to use this. I want to use that. I want to do this. I want to do that. And you're like, guys, this is more technical debt on top of we talk about AI data. If you can't get on top of your data, stop playing with the AI because it's not going to get anywhere. And that's just one very large, I was going to say small, one very large example. So it depends where you're at. It's a pretty smooth gig if you got a nice agile business. Actually, I always, when we try to articulate what my vision is for probably the last 2 or 3 organizations, which are older organizations, which means they've got more technical debt by definition because their technology has lived for a very long time. I have a really, really boring position on it, which is not, to put a computer in the hands of everyone in the world or to, all these wonderful vision. It's simply to lay the strong foundations and standards to enable absolute business agility. So if I can just go out and buy that toy and really comfortably plug it into my environment and it's going to join up and make sense to my customers and it's not going to create even more technical debt, then everything you do is iteration and innovation. So it's super hard. So and when you walk into an organization with technical debt, which I've had in the past, then at the beginning, people get quite excited. Wow, this person really understands the deep problems that we have and is prepared to lay the foundations of improvement. And then after 2 years, they're like, can we have something new, please? Well, it took you 20 years to build this. Now we're only 2 years into trying to improve it.
Fix it all. Yeah.
Yeah. And trying to get that balance. One of my most disliked phrases in business is quick wins. Quick wins. I hate quick wins because quick wins are technical debt. Quick wins are, if there was a low hanging fruit, someone would have picked it all day.
You saying that, Danny, is music to my ears because I get so agitated when people are like, you need to focus on the quick wins. I'm like, we can focus on quick wins, but it's not going to, fix the fact that you've got a leg and an arm missing. Like we have to work on a little bit broader, boring strokes to get you to a place that's a little bit more exciting. Yeah.
And maybe the counter to that is you gotta be your best publicist, right? You gotta go, well, we've eliminated some basic hygiene, but that's not a good news story. Actually, it is a good news story. And if you can kind of go bit by bit by bit and help people see, hey, you can now log in with facial recognition. Okay, big deal. You switched on facial recognition. No, that took a year and a half. That took a year and a half. To me, no idea how much.
How dare you just breeze over that very important fact.
And then people go, oh, the thing I love most about the 2 years worth of work is I can now just unlock my laptop with my fingerprint, or when I open up and it sees my face. That just makes life so much easier for me. Okay, great. And you got to be your best publicist, I suppose. And like tech leaders are pretty crap at that. Digital leaders are a bit better, but tech leaders generally aren't great at their own publicity because they take it for granted, like that basic hygiene.
Yeah, sure. So I'm interested, Danny. I mean, you're known for making a big impact with very limited resources. Can you share how you would typically, in a landscape like this, your company's expecting a lot of innovation, but they're sitting on a lot of technical backlog that needs to be cleared up. And they're very limited on resource. They've gone through, cuts or whatever else, they're just not in a good shape. I mean, how have you in the past prioritized initiatives, and driven efficiency in resource constrained environments?
So particularly my last organization was very, very light on resource. I think the whole tech team when I started was about 8 or 9 people. For an organization that was facilitating thousands of bone marrow stem cell transplants a year, had 400 staff, multiple offices across the country, it was pretty tight. So, I think there are a few things. So one is a vision and a strategy. So what you've got to do is stop living hand to mouth. That's the key. If you're firefighting and living hand to mouth, you're just churning the handle, and nothing will ever change if all you do is churn a handle. But if you have a strategy and you start to define some good, solid architectural practices, then what you want is every time you do something, it makes it a little bit better. It makes it a bit more efficient. You don't have to go through 3 people to get it done. You realize that 1 person can get it done. You've put in automation to get those little bits. That's only possible by having that level of culture and behavior and talent, right? I've always strongly believed the best talent in your organization is in your organization, across your organization, right? Not the best project manager is your project manager or the best developer is your developer, but there is talent across your organization that know the processes, know the culture, know the customer, and are able to do things. And many of the best people I've ever worked with have come from within the business and have retrained into kind of technical roles. So getting the right people and also taking people from outside of that environment of technical debt means they haven't got any preconceptions about how things should be. They'll look at it and go, oh my God, why do I have to go through 7 different people to get that one thing done? Can't we just go click, click, click? So I think that's really important. I think another one is this, I say this with care. You need to roll up your sleeves as a leader, but you've got to get that balance, right? And it's a really hard balance. So you can go in and go, get out of the way. I'm going to do it myself. You lot are useless. That's not going to work, clearly. You can also go, you're all empowered. Off you go. And that's not going to work. I've tried both, by the way, just to be clear, right? I tried all of them. That's how I learned them. And what I find is that, going in and taking some strategic pieces and doing them yourself, I mean, as in leading them yourself, shows people that's important, right? Okay. Why is he getting involved? Why is he driving? Okay. That's important. And then you find the problems in the process. You find the problem in the step and you go, okay, well, that's a blocker. How can we fix that once and for all? So every time you come across something, you don't go, hey, look, I've just delivered this thing in 5 minutes. You go, I've now removed that blocker for everybody. So those are the key things about content. It's your question really about improvement and innovation. You've got to do that a little bit at a time, getting in the right mindset, getting the right people, and just I talked about strategy and architecture. It's about prioritization. I don't think people understand what prioritization is. And I say that, again, trying to state the real obvious here. Prioritization is not, and I repeat, is not picking the most important things. That is not prioritization. Anyone that thinks a prioritization is picking the most important things is deluding themselves, because if they look at the table, do you know what they're going to find? A lot of important things.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Prioritization is picking the really important things that you're not going to do. It's not picking the unimportant things that you're not going to do, because spoiler alert, you were never going to do them anyway. You're going to pretend you were doing them. And then 2 years down the line, you won't have moved an inch on them because you didn't get a chance. But it's really important, but I didn't get a chance. Prioritization is picking that thing that you are moving on and going, you know what? I'm going to stop doing that. I'm going to focus on this thing. It's about minimizing the amount of time work is in motion. So pick the thing. Once you got it in your hand, get it done, get it delivered, add business value, and shut it down and move on to the next thing. But if you've got 7 things in your hands all at the same time, then everything just takes longer and nothing gets done. And a year and a half later, you go, this is the way to do it, right? Jump forwards. Jumping forward is a really great tactic. So, or mechanism. Jump forward 2 years and go, oh, hold on. That thing that I thought was really important? Well, I've only done 3% of it. So what if 2 years earlier, I had said, I'm not going to do anything about it? It would have been outrage. Everyone going, you can't not do anything about it. This is absolutely critical. The reality is 2 years later, we haven't done anything about it. So taking
really
that
good approach,
vision, I play that same jumping forwards, totally unrelated, but I play the same thing about what, the art of the possible, right? So I just, simple, dumb example is driverless cars. Oh, cars can't drive themselves. I would never trust a driverless car and, and all of that stuff. And if you just say to that person, jump forward 50 years, do you think there'll be driverless cars? Oh yeah, of course they will. Of course they will. Okay, cool. So there will be driverless cars. Now it's just a question of when. It's not a question of if. And I think jumping forward, jumping backwards is a really important, jump forward. If we did absolutely nothing about that really high priority thing in 2 years' time, what will it look like? Well, it will basically look exactly the same as today, which is not where we want to be, but we won't go bankrupt because of it. Okay. Well, then maybe we just for a minute, just humor me. What if we don't do anything about that? What did that enable us to do then? And off you go. So that's the other thing. You walk into an organization and, sorry, not thing, but under-resourced is a very relative term. What is under-resourced really? If we talk about AI is amazing, right? You know what AI is going to do? It's going to make everybody more productive. Everyone's going to be 20% more productive. And the organization is going to have exactly the same headcount and everyone's going to be more creative. Show me any organization that is perfectly resourced or over-resourced, right? You won't.
That's a good idea.
Every organization will be optimally resourced, based on the finances available, the capacity for change, and so on. And optimally resourced at that moment in time based on all of those constraints might mean you don't have enough capacity for transformation.
That's a very good point. Exactly right. And that plays into your prioritization again, right? And picking,
and you could easily have, I mean, at my last organization, when I was listed number one in the CIO 100, which was largely, not completely, but largely based on doing a lot with less, a tiny team delivered an extraordinary amount of change. And it felt like forever for the organization. Imagine the CEO's face 3 years in where she's going, my email still doesn't work. And we're going, I know, I could try and fix your email, but I got to fix your domain. I've got to fix your DNS. I've got to fix. There's a sequence of activity, but here is the plan. And when we get there, and when we got there the day before the pandemic. Like we got there so that when the pandemic happened, we're like, oh my God, everyone's going to have to work from home. Okay, we can do that now. But a year ago, there wasn't a hope in hell that would have been possible. And the only thing that we didn't have working was telephony. So I stayed up until 3 a.m. that morning and delivered.
Trying to get that running.
Absolutely delivered a web-based telephony solution that was based on desk phones. And we had it done. And we literally said, okay, we don't know when lockdown's going to come. So what we're going to do is over the next 5 days, 20% of the workforce is going to work from home for each day. And then what you do is literally just go home and try and work from home. Here are some instructions. And if you get any problems, flag them. And by the end of the week, we'll know where all the gaps are and we'll have addressed them. And we did that Monday to Friday. And the following Monday is when we went into lockdown and we were done. But that was 3 years worth of really hard work. The timing was everything, but we did it step by step and everything was clean and everything was reliable. And then during the pandemic, we didn't have laptops. It was all virtual thin clients. We decided, okay, now it's time to roll out laptops. And we were able to do it, literally 2 of us. Okay. Me
Incredible.
and one, we did it. We ran a pilot in about 6 weeks. And then we delivered a rollout to 350 staff in about 3 months, all remote, all done remotely with 2 people. And so my point is, we talk about under-resourced. It's a relative term because I'll see organizations with 5 times that capacity, if not more, take 10 times as long to do exactly the same job. And you're just like, why does it take so long? There's too many people involved. So I think sometimes a small agile, efficient team goes a long way, and you can hack that, right? By creating small, efficient, agile, autonomous teams, independent of each other. I think that's the problem.
That makes sense.
They all become interdependent on each other, and you can't unpick it, and then you can't get anything done because I literally used this expression this morning. How many engineers does it take to change a light bulb? Because all of this could be done by one person. So why does 6 people need to get involved? So when you've got light resources, you get a lot more done because you don't pretend that you need 10 people to do the job of one person.
That's fantastic. Thanks very much, Danny. So for everyone, that's all we got time for our first episode of the Search for Clarity, where we're looking at leading with impact with Danny Atias on CIO challenges and driving executive impact. So don't forget to miss not next week, but the next episode 2, which will be coming soon. We'll put all the details and Danny's details in the notes and on the visuals next. Thanks very much for joining us and looking forward to catching you all again in the next 2 weeks. All the very best. Take care, everyone.